so that we can all fill the seats tonight. We really do appreciate you coming out. Just so you know, you're in the right place. You're at Making Sense of Carbon Pricing. New Brunswickers taking climate action. And it's so great to see so many of you out here tonight taking an interest in this subject matter. My name is Tamara White, and I'm going to be your guide for this evening. Before we get started, I would like to first acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional, unceded territory of the Wolastoq and Mi'kmaq peoples. I would also like to take a moment to thank the Fredericton Green Party Association for hosting and sponsoring tonight's event, and a special thank you to Tom McLean and his team for pulling it all together. A couple of housekeeping items before we continue. You may have signed a registration sheet when you came in. If you didn't and you would like to, we're using that registration sheet to send you a summary of tonight's recording that's happening if you're interested in that. And also you can indicate whether you're interested in learning more about the Green Party Association or if you're interested in these types of events so that we have your contact information. So you can do that as you leave if you haven't done so already. And also, you may have noticed coming in, there's some lovely treats at the back and drinks, so help yourself throughout the evening. Don't need to wait necessarily till break time, but if you want to take a quiet peek down and grab a snack, because there's a lot to get in this evening, and we're probably not going to have a long break. There might be a little break between the presentations and the questions and answers. So, I'd like to frame up this evening for you. First, we're going to hear from our wonderful panelists, whom I will introduce shortly. We're so grateful that they could be here this evening to share their expertise. After their presentations of about 15 minutes each, we're going to have a 90-minute question and answer period, followed by a brief wrap-up, and then we're going to send you on your way home, and hopefully it's just still raining and not icy. So during the question and answer period, if for whatever reason you're not interested or you can't get to the microphone, we're providing pen and paper so that you can write your question down. And our runner, Jen, over here, in black and green, she will come and get your questions if you raise your hand. And then I would put them in during question period. And we want to remind everyone that tonight we're specifically focusing on carbon pricing as a subject. It's not really a night to debate or discuss climate change in broad strokes. We really want to drill down to the mechanism of carbon pricing. There's been a lot said about it, and we want to try to help people understand what it's all about and what the effects would be. So, let's begin. Carbon pricing and climate change. More and more, we are taking notice of the extreme changes in our weather patterns. And we're wondering what we can do to affect change. Where do we start? How can we help? There's been a lot said about this subject. And not unlike many things, it can be a complicated subject. And then we have an election. And a lot more is said, and things get even more confusing. So we start to ask questions. What is this carbon pricing? How does it work? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it actually going to do something? And how can we help? And will it be fair when it's implemented? These are just some of the questions we'd like to explore this evening. And this is intended to be a non-partisan discussion and not an attempt to explain the federal carbon tax plan. We really want to create an open and safe place for you to gain a better understanding of how carbon pricing will work to encourage new habits that will help curb climate change. Now, there may be some people in the room, I expect a lot of you, are already well versed in carbon pricing, and some of you may be just taking a look at it sort of for the first time. So I want to say that feel free to ask whatever question wherever you are. No questions are wrong, and they are all important. So feel free to ask whatever question is important to you. As we will learn tonight, carbon pricing can take several forms, and it's not the only mechanism to affect climate change, but it's certainly a very good place to start. Through the presentations this evening and through the answers to your questions, we will get a better understanding of the various approaches and hopefully feel more equipped to express our support for its implementation and how we fit into the equation. I get the sense that people would really like to take action. They want to contribute to a hopeful solution. They just want to know how. So it will take great minds to lead the way, a little or a lot of trial and error, and a willing public to take action to find success. So, enough from me, and without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. First we have Mr. David Kuhn, leader of the Green Party of New Brunswick and MLA for Fredericton South. In September 12th, David Kuhn was elected leader of the Green Party of New Brunswick. 2 years later, he was elected to the Legislative Assembly as the MLA for Fredericton South. Mr. Kuhn is a member of a number of standing committees, including Economic Policy, Public Accounts, and Crown Corporations. He served on the Select Committee on Climate Change, whose recommendations were largely adopted by the government. Prior to entering politics in 2012, Mr. Kuhn spent 25 years working on climate change policy and advocacy at the Conservation Council of New Brunswick. He is the past chair of the Canadian Climate Action Network and published Canada's first climate change primer in 1992. David attended the United Nations Climate Summit in Montreal in 2005 and in Paris in 2015. He was awarded the Silver Medallion by the Canadian Environmental Achievements Awards for his work to promote climate action. David currently resides in Fredericton with his wife Janice Harvey and their 2 beautiful daughters. Thank you for being here, David. Next we have Dr. Anthony Myatt. Tony Myatt received his PhD from McMaster University with distinction in theory. He taught at McMaster University, the University of Western Ontario, the University of Toronto, and the University of New Brunswick, where he has been Professor of Economics since 1992. His research interests have included the supply side effects of interest rates, labor market discrimination, unemployment rate disparities, the effects of minimum wages, New Brunswick's deficit and debt problems, the methods and content of economic education, and the ideological biases of mainstream textbooks. Tony co-authored with Rod Hill the Economics Anti-Textbook, a critical thinker's guide to microeconomics, and he's currently finishing work on a companion book called The Macroeconomics Anti-Textbook with Brian McLean. Tony lives in Fredericton with his wife and their daughter and son. Thank you so much for being here, Tony. And lastly, we have Dr. Louise Popham. Louise is director of the Environment and Sustainable Development Research Center, the ESDRC, whoever likes acronyms, because there's a ton of them out there now, at the University of New Brunswick. She brings a wealth of experience to the ESDRC in moving the ball forward on climate change. She gets things done. I like that. Because policy proposals, communication strategies, and education campaigns are based on solid research, as well as collaboration with national and international networks. Louise lives in Keswick Ridge with her partner Tom, where they homestead, and engage with students through site visits, teaching, and research at UNB. Louise completed a PhD in environmental management at UNB in 2014, where she is also an honorary research associate. Her research explored the environmental ethics associated with environmental practices. She completed her master's in environmental education and communication at Royal Road University in 2008. Thank you for being here, Louise.